Chech, Herbert's 100 harem. All right, so her name is Varthi, Herbert says before letting out a few clicking sounds from his tongue. The officer he's beside turns to him and blinks. They're at a computer near the front of the station. They're on high alert, so the more people that aren't police away from the interior, the more comfortable the officers will be. Your pronunciation is appalling, the Indinus officer chides him. But aren't you human? You picked up a language not made for your body type in less than a year? I was also a basic trooper. Now I'm an intelligence agent. He notes not telling her he more or less blatantly cheated with the fast training techniques. Learning a language was trivial compared to learning all the skills expected of a newly recruited Undaunted. Go to bed with the right headband on and learn a language with a native accent. Unfortunately, some languages just aren't made for human mouths, this one requiring a tongue that can click on both sides of the mouth simultaneously. But the upside is that his mouth game has improved significantly since learning it. I can see it. Don't you Undaunted have accelerated training methods? Most of the training we see is just being about reinforcing the training, right? Physical conditioning and reinforcement, yes. Knowing everything academically is one thing. Going through it is quite another. Herbert agrees. The disruption needle he threw earlier is suspended in the air above a platform and slowly rotating as it is scanned again and again and again to verify who the woman who snuck into the station was. With each scan, a significant bite had been taken out of the suspect list as they narrowed down a massively overpopulated planet's population down to a single person. It had taken 20 minutes. Let's see, Muliti plate, he says, trailing off. Is something wrong with Muliti plate? The officer asks him. I was there recently. Perhaps our guest was uninvolved with our gunner and infiltrator. This wouldn't be the first time I've had multiple different things happen at once. So this is common for you. I'm involved in a lot of things happening. Some of them I have to step away from and allow others to continue where I left off. People retaliating then think it's still me and come after me while I'm working on something else entirely, he says before shrugging. Of course, it could just be a coincidence. The plates and spires have so many people on them, and travel between them is so easy that she could be a random thrill-seeker for all we know. Stranger things happen often enough. You think someone would risk arrest and possibly being shot for some cheap thrills? I've seen dumber. How much dumber? A lot. Stupidity is kind of hard to quantify, and there's different types as well, Herbert says. Still, I'll need to get moving to do something about this. Excuse me? The officer asked. It's out of your jurisdiction, which limits your options, but not mine. You'll receive a report after I'm done, but some of it might be redacted. Why redacted? Because there might be loose ends we're still pursuing, Herbert says with a nod. Right, I'm going to get someone to help out here. I'm going to Muliti Plate after a change of clothing. May I ask why? Short of our Dzedan recruits, I'm the closest the Undaunted have to a Dzedan expert. If anyone is in position to go after her, it's me. But aren't you a celebrity among the hunting races? A patriarch? I am. However, I'm also about 2 years younger now and seriously baby-faced by compare, which means that I don't look like myself but still resemble myself enough to be vaguely familiar, which plays to my advantage. People let their guard down around familiar faces, Herbert says. Does that mean I'm going home for now? Chitter asks, and Herbert leans back. You're a grown woman. I can't send you to your room, but I'm heading off without you. It's time for me to put on a more serious face. Herbert confirms. Officers, my replacement is already underway. All right, so how soon can we? The officer asks before the door opens and in sweeps the gray-furred rabbi's man, waving with 3 of his 4 white-gloved hands and twirling around a bright orange carrot in his last one. What's up, Cox? Operative Bugs, here to make things better for you, the rabbi's proclaims before sauntering in with a smile. Weapons are raised. Hey, ain't nothing to worry about. I'm with him, here to take the reins of the problems here so he can go running off to solve a few more. Where'd you turn Albuquerque? Herbert asks. He actually asked for a sit rep. Turned around and doubled back. Bugs replies, and Herbert freezes. Knowing that potential hostiles were right outside the station and there was more than expected was not good. Did you now? Good to know. Herbert replies and then nods as Bugs visibly transfers his carrot to his upper right hand before sticking it in his mouth like a cigar. See you soon, Doc. Bugs bids him as Herbert says his goodbyes to Chitter and the officer before leaving out the front, knowing for a fact that to his immediate left and up there's going to be someone there, someone potentially hostile watching him. He rushes off to public transport, pays his fare, and then teleports out to the top of a nearby building. The distance means that it would take an adept paying attention to notice his movement. He peeks over the lip and sees them almost right away. He also sees why operative Bugs only signal potential. They have the looks of being a pack of admirers and not a hostile. But it's impossible to fully tell when you have male agents wandering around. If he had called in Harriet, there wouldn't be any confusion, but she's currently in deep cover and likely won't be coming out to even breathe for a day or two. While the male prioritization on undaunted recruitment did give them an eager pool of people trying to find some purpose in life, it did mean they stood out a little too much at times. Still, it did open far more doors than it closed, and it also meant that female undaunted were practically invisible, which was very useful, as Harriet kept proving on the daily. He creeps up to the target, watching her carefully, and jumping from roof to roof until he's right behind them. Rabbis, all, watching eagerly and taking notes. He peeks between them and starts reading the notes. Swagger, attitude, the lack of women around him, the shine of his eyes, and how perky his ears are. Yep, typical husband, stalking notes. There is a very easy way to test this, though, and the fact it's both fun and funny just adds to it. He takes a step back, considers his position, and perches on top of a small antenna for extra surrealism. He then pulls out his communicator and first sends a quick message to Bugs about the plan, and then grins at the view of the thumbs up. He then puts the communicator on its loudest setting and calls Bugs openly. Ah, audible carrot crunching. What's up, Doc? The girls turn in surprise, and some of them do a double take at the sight of Herbert perched on the antenna like a surrealist counterbalance sculpture. Hey, operative Bugs. Turns out that it's not hostiles at all, just a bunch of poor, lonely girls in desperate need of some Hassenpfeffer? Herbert chimes out gleefully. The girls may not understand the reference, but they clearly understand the implication as they start to rush at him, calling out protests. Get over here before their thirst dries out a new Sahara. He then falls off the antenna and coincidentally lands on his feet. Well, that's the ice broken. If you ladies want to meet Mr. Greyfur, he's coming out soon. Oh, and before I forget, he's on the clock right now, so the most you'll get is a meetup later. Get me? Who are you? One of them asks and cannot fully fight back the smirk. He holds up his communicator and prepares an app with one hand and slips on a pair of dark sunglasses with the other. He is in a suit after all. Even if the bow tie doesn't quite fit the gag. Me, I'm just a figment of your imagination, he says, and his communicator lets out a bright flash that makes everyone blink as he teleports a distance away. That'll give them something to talk about. All right, Bugs has that handle, no doubt, and I gotta get moving. Need to get my war face on. Agents Ripley and Newt were two Zedden women who had made it into the Undaunted Intelligence Division at the same time. It had been both the most serious and strict of standards and simultaneously the most ridiculous place imaginable. The clear favoring of mental games and confusion tactics as its primary smokescreen made things entertaining, as the mental game basically involved throw everything at the wall and run with anything that stuck. Crazy references that came from all directions, schemes that were guaranteed to fail, followed through just to grab as much attention as possible, and a dizzying array of secret identities that people put on and off like coats. They only really knew each other's actual names and that of the person they were here to meet. The man with the most absurd cover of complete honesty and clarity. Herbert Jameson, official spy, operative and infiltrator of the Undaunted. The sheer stories they had heard about him were impressive. Keeping pace with a grand huntsmistress and matriarch before being entitled a patriarch. Every day more and more mission files were being released about him, and the man seemed to be literally everywhere all at once and doing everything personally. Their mission with him was simple. They were to help him in inquiring about the location of a Zedden woman who lived on this plate and both correlate his story and provide backup should the worst happen. A little overcautious for an agent of his skill, but at the same time it was understandable. After all, he'd recently been badly injured, and the healing coma had rendered him even smaller and almost the most adorable child to ever walks around the corner. He's clearly a Tret with a Dzeden family, and everything about him speaks about how loved and loving this little boy is, with his mothers and sisters, both big and small, as he's wearing everything they've given him and, Agent Jameson? Newt asks in shock, and receives a nod from the impossibly adorable little boy. He looked like the very concept of the sweet little brother and adored son, made physically manifest in one person. Why are you dressed like that? We're going to be asking some questions, and you two are here to help sell the story. He says with a smile that is clearly intended to be devious, but hands twitch with the urge to pinch his cheeks and hug and cuddle him. He brings up an image of a Dzeden woman. This is Varthi. He then butchers the pronunciation of magnificence in Torlari Click, as if he had a personal vendetta against it. It only makes him cuter. All right, so I've reached the appeal singularity. Got it. Herbert notes to himself in a dead tone as the two professional women he expected to have his back in a shootout lose all sense of decorum and try to drown him in their breaths. Unfortunately for them both, shoving someone into a distinctly unarmored part of your physiology means that you're not protected if they have sharp little nails and a willingness to pinch. Two cries of pain later, and both women come to their senses, and Herbert coughs into his fist. I don't have to order you both to forget the last 30 seconds, do I? No, sir, Agent Ripley says. Good. Now, as I was saying, our mission is to search for this local woman of Varthi, a native to this spire. She recently attempted to infiltrate a police station while several other parties were involved, and when I managed to unveil her, she used a recall teleport to retreat. We have her actual address and already have a few agents in there poking around. We need to understand what the mood on the street is, and the best way to do that is by asking, why are we here though? And why are you dressed? Why do you have the exact type of makeup, scent, presence, and look to make any Dzeden or Yaya lose their minds? Because a little boy sniffling and wondering where cousin Varthi went with his two big sisters for protection is going to get a lot of people talking and will also lure in any organization members, because while this will grab their suspicion, one look at me will silence any alarm bells. Just lay it flat, sir, Agent Newt tells him. You two are going to do most of the talking. I'm the big distraction that will stop anyone from putting two coherent thoughts together. Makes sense? Is this legal? Agent Ripley asks. It's not illegal, Herbert says in an evasive tone.